All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Side Quest Podcast, the unofficial podcast of Fitocracy. If you're not following us on Twitter, check us out at SideQuestFM. You can also find us on Facebook. Just search Side Quest Podcast and like us there. The best thing I can ask for you to do is head over to iTunes when you get done listening to the show, leave a review, hit subscribe. That's what helps move us up the channels, helps more people see and hear the amazing guests that I have on the show as well. You can also listen to all of the episodes at sidequestfitness.com/podcast. I'm updating everything, adding pictures, working on the site slowly but surely. But you can check that out there. Check out articles that I posted as well, and all of that fun stuff. I have a great guest for you today. He has written for Stack. He has written for the Personal Trainer Development Center, Breaking Muscle, and LiveStrong, just to name a few. He is a personal trainer and online fitness coach based in England, and he runs Healthy Living, Heavy Lifting, a great website that I love to follow. He puts out lots of great social media content, and I love all the videos that he does, as well as all of the information that he puts out. But I have on the show the one and the only Mike Samuels. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, Rob, thanks for having me, and thanks for a really nice introduction as well. It was, very kind.
Well, thank you. I originally found you, as I started getting into the world of fitness and started the podcast, and I loved your daily videos that you put out, and someone who, like myself, sort of went down that clean eating paleo thing and only got fat off. I mean, I got in good shape, but I was still fat, so I enjoyed finding someone who was like, yes, I can eat Ben & Jerry's as well and get super ripped. So it's good to know that people are out there letting people know you can eat ice cream. You can have a slice or two of pizza. You don't have to, sacrifice sanity on the altar of dieting. But Mike, how did you, so a lot of listeners may not know who you are. Some may. How did you get into fitness? Were you a former fat kid? Did you play a lot of football growing up? Were you an athlete, or were you just, a video gamer who one day got tired of, munching on Fox's Golden Crunchers, which are the greatest things ever invented in the world ever? As an American, I could say that. But how did you get into this?
Well, I was always fairly active at school, but I was kind of the fat kid as well, really. So I liked playing sports, but I liked ice cream and cake a lot more, really. And I think I was about 15 and I decided something needed to be done. So I started running and did the typical clean eating, low fat route. I didn't really count calories, but my typical diet was trying to keep fat as low as possible. I didn't know about protein, didn't know about macros, and lost quite a lot of weight, mainly through long distance running. Got quite skinny. So then I started reading your Muscle and Fitness, your Flex magazines and all of that. Did all the chicken, broccoli and rice diets, bulked up a bit. And I think it was then I decided I wanted to go into fitness as a career. Before that, I'd toyed with the idea of going into law, potentially being a solicitor, and went to college to do it and found it incredibly boring. So I thought, no offense to any lawyers or solicitors listening, but it just wasn't for me. So I thought, I need to do something different. And I thought fitness might be it. Started out as a personal trainer. I got qualified, and it was then that I discovered paleo diet and really got into this idea of clean eating, really. And from a physique standpoint, that was when it all started to go downhill a bit. So obviously I started lifting the weights when I discovered bodybuilding. And then with paleo, I thought, well, this must be the solution. It's what everyone's saying we need to do. We're designed to eat like this. And so what I did was I took paleo quite literally, as in you can eat meat, fish, nuts, whatever, oils and everything. I thought, well, if you can eat nuts as a snack, I'm going to have a whole family-sized bag of Brazil nuts as a snack. If coconut oil is good and olive oil is good, then why not put coconut and olive oil on your vegetables every single meal?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, if something's good, then more is obviously going to be better. So I think I did the paleo diet probably for a year and went from being semi in shape to quite fat. So I was quite strong as well. But I sort of ballooned up really and couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. And one was just the overconsumption of calories. And secondly was the fact that because I was so restrictive with my diet in the week, despite eating lots, I wasn't eating very varied diet. I would then have a binge at weekends. So my normal kind of paleo days, 6 days a week, was still 3,000-4,000 calories, which was enough to put me into a surplus. But then that binge day at the weekend, where I was having all the man-made foods, the so-called processed junk, was probably another 6,000-7,000 calories on top. So then that was plunging me further and further into this kind of vicious cycle. And after that, I basically discovered counting macros and flexible dieting through Lane Norton. Hired him as a coach. And that's been it with the diet from them, really, not kind of looked back. And I think hiring him did two things. One, in terms of how I approach my own diet. And secondly, that spurred me on to go into the online realm as well. So career-wise, it was a big one because until then I was still doing the typical personal trainer route. That was my only source of income, working or doing 40, 50 client sessions a week and getting burnt out. And then, 3 years ago was the turning point in terms of discovering flexible dieting and realizing that I could do the same thing I was doing with people in person, but online and on a bigger scale. So that's kind of 6 years of diet and career in about 3 minutes, I think.
It is very interesting to try and like whittle everything down because you're like, no, there's so much stuff that happened.
Yeah.
I just want to talk. So I just want to ask about Lane. I follow him on Twitter and I listen to his podcast as well. Is he as intense as a coach, like one-on-one online, like as he seems to be in the Twitter sphere?
He can be. He's very, I'd say he's quite not blunt with his replies, but he tells you what needs to be done. Right. And that's it. He gives you advice, and if you want to do it, that's fine. If not, no worries. I think as far as I know, with female clients, he has a bit more sort of back and forth just because I've found myself as well emotionally, they often need that bit more support. For me, I pretty much need to be told what to be done with macros and training. And so our weekly email conversations are usually an email from me that's about 2 lines, a 2 email back from him, and then like a 2-word email back from me just saying thanks. And that's kind of it. But he's very, very good. If you need extra help, he's always there. And at the end of the day, he gets results. And met him in person a few times as well, and he's a really nice guy, completely genuine and very, very generous with his time as well. So, yeah, I mean, I'd sort of class him as a friend as well, really, having met him a few times now. So, yeah, hopefully he'll keep me on for the foreseeable future.
And you're getting ready for a show as we speak, because I saw a post a few weeks ago and you were like, I ate a whole pizza, but I'm like 8 weeks out and I'm not going to worry about it. I just took like an 8-mile walk. So what's one thing, because this is something I've always thought about doing it, and I'm not going to lie, like as I get under like 2,000 calories, sometimes I'm like, I don't want to ever attempt a bodybuilding show because I feel like crap. What's one thing most people don't know that is a huge challenge to, in getting ready for a show?
I think for me, it's just the fact that your body doesn't like being that lean, really. I'm just over a week out now. It's a week tomorrow. And so body fat's kind of as low as ever, or as low as it's ever been for me. And I'm pretty cold. It's the UK, so we're not that warm over here, but it's getting into summer, and I don't think I've gone out in just a t-shirt yet. So it's pretty cold. Wearing socks in bed, things like that. And that's when it's hard. And I think that's when a lot of people, often flexible dieters, are a bit guilty of saying, oh yeah, you can eat all this and you can eat junk food and everything. But when your calories are lower and when you're feeling hungry and not feeling too great, you actually do end up eating your chicken and veggies and potatoes and everything. Right. And that's it really. And I think just generally the fact that most people's bodies don't like being that lean, really. So you do find that you're tired and you're hungry and cold. So Yeah, it's not horrific by any means, but it's certainly not, I wouldn't want to stay here at this kind of level year round.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's, as you start restricting calories, you're like, I can fit in this ice cream, but it's like one serving.
Yeah, it's just not worth it. And then the rest of the day you're on chicken breast and spinach if you want to do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Especially the saddest thing ever. And listeners, if you've never done this, I highly suggest it. Just see what one serving size of peanut butter actually looks like, and it is quite possibly it will make you cry. It's so sad how small like 32 grams of peanut butter really is. And then you think about like all the times as a kid that you just ate slobs of peanut butter. So flexible dieting it kind of sounds like a gimmick, like it sounds too good to be true. And you came from a clean eating world, and then Lane introduced you to that. What was your biggest struggle? Like, what did you struggle with? Like, did you even believe him when he told you that you could like eat ice cream and you could eat pizza and drink beer, like that you could do this and stay in shape? Like, or were you like, dude, you're crazy? What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly that. I thought he was absolutely nuts, and I told a story to someone a while back that I almost asked for a refund when he sent my plan through, because there was me expecting this whole document with, eat this on a Monday at 6 o'clock and have this on here's your meal for Thursday at 9 o'clock and everything. And it was pretty much a list of numbers for normal days and refeed days, and saying, here's some foods that you got your proteins, your carbs, your fats, eat mainly these. But if you want ice cream, if you want pizza, if you want whatever, that's fine. Eat it and make it fit your macros. And I thought, that's never going to work. And I thought, I'll give it a go for a bit and see what happens. And clearly it does work. But I think that's the thing. People do really, really struggle to believe in it to start off with. And the fact that, it's just controlling quantity rather than so-called quality of foods. So I think for me, the biggest thing to start with was actually having stuff in moderation. I was still prone to the odd binge episode that wasn't particularly nice, because I've been so used to this restriction and then binge cycle for a couple of years, that suddenly being told you can have some ice cream was quite hard. It was quite difficult probably the first year actually to eat anything like that in moderation. And I'd still occasionally give myself a day where I didn't track anything and I ate a lot of crap. And it's only been the last couple of years of doing it that actually it's got around to me being much more moderate with it. But I do think a lot of people coming from that bodybuilding, that clean eating background, especially female figure competitors and, female competitors of any degree really, have been told for so long they have to restrict. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of coaches will say, oh, go and have that binge and get it out of your system and make yourself feel sick so you feel guilty for doing it and then you don't want to do it again, which is just such an awful relationship to have with food. But if you can crack that, I think flexible dieting is the way forward, really, because it gives you that quantitative data and that moderate mindset to actually kind of live your life and not stress or not have food control what you do.
Right. No, and I think you said something that makes a lot of sense in the mental aspect, that and what kind of spurred a thought here was, when you restrict, and I did it when I did paleo, I restricted. God, all I wanted to do was just eat a loaf of bread. All I wanted to do was eat a homemade Southern style biscuit that I grew up with, slattered, but all right, fine, I can put butter on it because that's a fat. Cool.
Yeah.
But I wanted all these things, but I was like, no, you can't have potatoes. You can't do any of this. You can't have all the good stuff. And then I found it really interesting that slowly but surely people started to be like, oh, sweet potatoes are cool. Oh, maybe white. And I'm like, what's up with the paleo people all of a sudden like throwing carbs in? But I think you need that mental reprieve, because when you restrict things, like if you can't make yourself happy mentally and you do something you dread, you're never going to stay with it. And you may never see the results because I think our brains kind of kick in and go, you know what? I don't want to do any of this. You know what? You're going to restrict stuff. I'm going to restrict stuff. Screw you.
Yeah. Is that exactly it? And I think you touched on something really good with cravings there about bread. Now I'm very much take it or leave it with bread. It's one of those things that I don't really eat it because I don't dislike it. I've got no particular affinity with it at all. Yet when I was doing paleo and I couldn't have it, I was just an absolute fiend for it. I'd go and eat a whole loaf and I craved it every single day. And now I can have it. I think, well, I don't really want it. If I want it, I'll have some. So I think that restriction mindset actually creates so many more cravings than you actually have just because you're denying yourself it.
Right. Something and this just popped in my head as well. You know, because you suffered with the binge eating thing. You know, you do great. And I think a lot of people, I think in America, this is kind of how a lot of people do. Because I hear it from clients and I hear it from people at the gym that I intern at. They're like, man, I do so good. So like all through the week, Monday through Friday, I'm so good. But the weekend comes and I just go crazy.
Yep.
And it's like the weekend is the hardest part of moderation. But it feels like a lot of times people are sort of like, and I know there are a lot of people out there that do suffer from this. And I think this is really where binge eating comes from. You restrict, and then you also have society telling you to do this or look like this or eat this or don't eat that. And then we become emotional eaters. And I think that is something a lot of people struggle with. And you can't be moderate when you emotionally just want to eat everything and sit in a corner and watch Gilmore Girls and just eat all your ice cream or eat a whole pizza. And I think something like if it fits your macros and flexible dieting seems too good to be true, you know, because they're like, but if I eat this and I get fat, what are you doing? So how do you teach moderation? How do you, like, as a coach, and how did you learn it for yourself? Like, how do you teach that to a client who might be an emotional eater who binges on the weekends?
It's really difficult. Like I said, I struggled with it myself for the first year or so. And for me, it was a case of avoiding what I'd refer to as triggers. So foods that you really are prone to binging on. So for me, it was not really one specific food, but it was more going out to buffets. So where you had unlimited food. So for about 2 years, I didn't do any buffets whatsoever. And then I think eventually I got taken to one where I was going out with some people and I thought, right, lay some ground rules. I'm only going to have 2 plates of food. I'm only going to eat what I want. I'm not going to just grab stuff because it's there. And gradually started introducing more and more things like that to my diet, just that I knew I was stronger mentally and I could kind of handle having them in moderation. But I will tell clients that if you've got something that does kick off a craving, don't have it for a bit. You know, try and take it out of your diet for a while. Maybe find something similar that you can get in instead, and then build it back in. So it's very, very difficult. I think a lot of the time people do underestimate it. But it's a case of, again, that I suppose weighing up if it's worth it. Like we said about ice cream earlier, you know, is having ice cream within your macros worth it if it means that you're on protein shakes the whole rest of the day?
Right.
So, and I'm not sure there's not, like a lot of stuff, not a one size fits all answer as to how to do it, but it's just a case of really trying to introduce it quite gradually and just getting that idea of moderation in there. And if someone does go a bit over on something, I think I try and stress to clients that if you go a bit over, it's probably not going to make that much of a difference at all, really. Especially if you're just dieting for general fat loss or maintenance, or as long as you're not in deep into a contest prep, it's not going to make much of a difference. So I tell people, don't beat yourself up. If you go a bit over, realize you've gone a bit over and stop. Don't think, oh my God, I've screwed everything up. I may as well go and eat 3 tubs of ice cream now. It's a case of just being kind to yourself, I think.
Yeah, I think that's something that's very hard. And I always feel awkward talking about stuff like this because I'm not an emotional eater. I don't eat when I get depressed. Okay, maybe I sometimes pour a couple shots of bourbon. But you know, I don't tend to eat when I feel bad, you know, or I'm down or whatever. And I think you're right about the buffets, is that at least in America, good God, and I'm sure over there as well, it's like, oh my God, this is so cheap. I can just put on this food. There's so much of it. Like, and then in some places they have like a salad bar. Oh God, there's so much. I never really liked salad, but I'm just going to make one anyways. And then there's the meat bar, and then there's the bread bar, and then there's the dessert bar. And it's like, what? That's a whole week's worth of, you can eat a whole week worth of food in that one sitting. Yeah, so in Chinese buffets, don't even get me started on that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
You want to talk about holding on to water weight? That right there will hold on to some water weight.
Yeah. Oh, well, I had that was actually one of my binge episodes when I had started flexible dieting. Actually, was I went out for a Chinese buffet over my birthday, and I think I put on something like it was 2 days worth of food. But one meal was a Chinese buffet, and I made the mistake of weighing myself the morning after. And I think on the Friday morning before I started, I'd weighed myself, and this is on like the Sunday night, and I'd put on about 11 pounds, I think, in that couple of days. Yeah, so I can testify to the fact that Chinese buffets are pretty much killer if you don't want short-term drastic weight gain.
Yeah. So mentioning birthdays. So this is something that just popped in my head. You know, moderation is key, and I even tell clients that occasionally, you know, everything in moderation, including moderation. You know, sometimes it is okay to eat an extra slice of cake. Sometimes it's okay to finish that pint of Ben and Jerry's. As you know, you've been on it for a little while. One little thing now that has to come with a caveat of it can be like once every couple of months. You can't do it once a week. But you know, everything in moderation, including moderation. And things like birthdays are usually like a thing where I'm like, all right, let's do it. I like last year on my birthday was a huge epic cheat day. I probably ate a burger on my at dinner that probably had 3,500 calories in it, but whatever. It was my birthday. So do you preach moderation even on like holidays or like one special day, or do you even sometimes take like you know what, it's my birthday, I'm going to eat everything in this Chinese buffet?
Yeah, I have the same approach as yourself. I think what I tend to say to clients is you've got 3 choices, and what you take is entirely up to you, provided you're happy with the decision you make. And number 1 is try and stick to everything perfectly, which I would generally say is a bad idea, because I think, 1, you're either going to be miserable that you've done that if you manage to do it, or you're going to try and do it and fail, and you're going to be miserable anyway. So unless you are in sort of contest prep, I probably avoid that one. The second one is just have that bit of moderation mindset and seeing it as a free meal or whatever, and you don't track, you don't count, but likewise, you don't eat to the point of feeling disgustingly sick with yourself. Or option 3 is complete blowout, eat as much as you can and feel like a horrible fat slob, which is fine if you choose to do that. I think make your decision beforehand and go for that. I always like the middle one of you don't track anything, you don't really care about macros for a day or two, but likewise, you have a meal as a meal. You don't just eat stuff for the sake of it. You still eat mindfully, really. So you eat stuff you want. You can eat till you feel pretty stuffed, but I wouldn't ever go to the point of feeling sick or feeling ill. Obviously, the only caveat is, again, contest prep. If you're within sort of 5 or 6 weeks of a deadline, I would say that you've kind of got to stick to stuff really if you want to get where you want to be. But then I'd probably tell a client who did want to go for a contest, don't pick one that's around a holiday or a special occasion or a big family event, because you're going to have a hard time with it. But yeah, like yourself, I would say moderation, or everything in moderation, including moderation.
Okay. All right. I got a couple of fun questions, and then we'll come back to training and diet and whatnot. If you could be any superhero, who would you be?
I think I'll probably go for Batman for no particular reason. He's just really cool. I like him. He's got quite a dark side. You know, he's really rich as well in, you know, as Bruce Wayne. So yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I think no particularly geeky reason, but I think it'd be quite nice to just fly around in a cape for a bit.
All right. Okay. What is the one song on your workout playlist that's your guilty pleasure that you would shamefully admit you actually listen to?
I don't know if it's guilty, but it's quite weird. I have the finale to the William Tell Overture by Rossini on there, which is my go-to deadlift song.
Okay.
So it's entirely different to, I usually listen to rock and metal when I train. So yeah, a bit of classical is maybe not guilty, but it's certainly different to everything else on there.
All right. I like that. I like that. Some classical. I have a friend who only works out to instrumental and like classical music and like movie soundtracks. He doesn't use any lyrics. He's like, I don't want to be distracted. Plus, a lot of times as the music starts to swell, you know, it gets me even more pumped.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, cool. If you could have dinner with one person in history, who would it be?
Oh, it's a difficult one. I think my answer will probably change depending on what I'm into. I know it's a weird response. And yeah, trying to think. I mean, at the moment, I'm really into sort of like productivity and mindset and stuff. And I think it'd be fascinating to talk to someone like Tim Ferriss. As much I don't particularly agree with his, you know, his ideas on diet and training and stuff that he had in the 4-Hour Body, I think a couple of hours with him, I could really pick his brains and find out just how to get a lot more productive and get stuff done. I think, you know, obviously he's still alive. It's not like he's a historical figure, but I think it'd be pretty cool to just grab a steak.
Okay. All right. I think, yeah, the slow carb thing, yeah, but it's an interesting read. And I like the fact that he does sort of like experiments on himself. Like he's kind of like a science nerd.
Yes.
Because I'm sort of the same way in a lot of aspects, which annoys my wife because she's like, can't stop with this weird stuff you're doing. Like, stop it. It's annoying. I just want to eat normally. I'm like, no, I want to do these things because they're weird. Like I was the kid who wanted to feed food coloring to a rat to see, like a white mouse, to see if it would turn him colors. It wouldn't. I just thought, like, as a 5-year-old, that would happen.
Why not? Give it a go.
Yeah. So who inspires you in fitness or otherwise? You know, you mentioned Tim that, you know, having dinner with him would be interesting, but is there someone else like in the business world, in maybe in you know, humanitarian world or in the fitness world, like who inspires you?
There are two guys who I think I owe a lot to sort of building my business to, really. One would be John Goodman of the Personal Training Development Center, just for the fact that I think he puts out so much free content that is purely designed to help people. You know, runs a business from it as well, but just the amount of free stuff and actionable content he puts out is phenomenal. And it was, again, him who showed me that there was more to personal training than just working with clients on the gym floor. And the second one would be Nate Green, who really got me into writing. Discovered him through his blog, and then obviously now he does stuff with Precision Nutrition. But that was, again, the turning point where I thought, oh, this writing stuff's pretty cool. Having hated anything to do with literature at school, never read a book unless I was forced to from the age of about 10, I think. Yeah, I was, you know, books were really uncool and you didn't want to read them, and TV is much, much better, all of that. And he got me really into thinking, actually, yeah, writing is pretty cool and I could do that. Not, well, I don't do it for a living now, but do it to generate clients and get business and just as a release, really. So those two guys in the fitness industry were probably my two biggest inspirations.
Okay. Yeah. John, I everything John puts out is amazing. I have not finished Ignite the Fire. So John, if you are listening, I will finish it because I'm going to finish it on my way to the fitness summit next week. in Kansas City because I'm going to have nothing to do on the plane, so I might as well read. Yeah, I'm like you. I'm not much of a reader, but I feel like with this fitness stuff, I'm like, I gotta know, I gotta get knowledge, man. Like I gotta read, like I have to do it, and then I get distracted by other silly things. But it happens. Okay, so let's go back to diet. Let's touch a little on training because we haven't talked about that. We got a few more minutes, and I want to go there. You know, what is your style of training that you are either currently doing, and what do you kind of work your clients with? Like, are you a strength and power guy? Are you more like a hypertrophy bodybuilding type, or just a mix of everything?
I think like diet, I encourage flexibility with it. So it's based on personal preference and on goals as well. I definitely am a big fan of more kind of strength-based work, purely for the fact that I've done a few powerlifting competitions myself. I think they're good fun. In terms of body composition and fitness, I think lifting heavy weights is the way forward. You know, the brand is Healthy Living, Heavy Lifting, so I couldn't really have clients training with
the heavy lifting.
Training with pink dumbbells and running on treadmills for 3 hours. So I always try and get clients to do some sort of strength work, but again, I've got people who will only train with body weight. They maybe like cardio, so I'll do a bit more cardio. And also, I think powerlifting as just an activity and having that as a goal is great for kind of general population clients, because often they don't want to get ridiculously shredded and step on stage.
Right.
They don't even want to do photo shoots, but they need some sort of goal. So having like a performance-based goal like powerlifting, even if they don't compete, I'll always strive to get them to do that. So they're always trying to better themselves. So yeah, my training is always revolving around powerlifting. At the moment, and for most of the last year or so, probably almost 2 years actually, I've been doing daily undulating periodization, just playing around with that. Initially brought into it by Lane, and then I released a product on DUP about a month ago, and so I've been messing around with different programs and protocols just as my own research until then. So yeah, I do a lot of squat, a lot of deadlift, a lot of bench press, but I'll occasionally go back to just a generic upper lower. And I think having fun with training is a big one. If you're not enjoying it, what's the point in doing it? So I'm always open to trying new things and getting clients to do different stuff.
Right. No, the fun thing is, I totally agree. You know, as a coach, I promote a lot of my clients to kind of think about, you know, deep inside you have, you know, who was your favorite, you know, superhero growing up? If it was Batman, then imagine that you're Batman training to fight whoever. You know, like find a way to mentally connect with what you're doing and have fun. You know, if you're doing like side lateral raises, imagine you're Batman opening his cape, getting ready to go to fly. Like, it has to be fun. If you're not having fun, you're not going to want to do it. Hence why most of us are like, I don't want to write a paper in class. Like, it's not fun. But if you find a way to make it fun, like in this business and with your brand, then you want to do it more often. Okay, so let's talk a little about DUP, because I'm very interested in it, and I read the article that you had out, and I think JMax Fitness had worked with you on it, or at least put it out, and that's where I had read it as well as your site. So what is it for people who don't know? Like, you're changing up, you're not doing the same, like, so it's not like Monday is leg day and Wednesday is back day and Friday is chest day. Like, you're changing it up. So, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I think the one thing people make a mistake on is they think DUP is a routine and that there's one program and it has to be squat, deadlift, and bench press. Whereas actually, it's kind of a system that can be applied to any exercise. So obviously, a lot of programs work in a linear fashion, whereby you just increase weight and sets and whatever week on week. And a lot of things like with block periodization will have a 2 to 6 week block of a hypertrophy phase, a 2 to 6 week block of like an intensification phase, and then a 2 to whatever block of like a peaking phase. So you're only ever working in mainly one rep range for one phase, whereas DUP blends all of them into one block. So you have your continuously every single week, you have strength days, you have power days, hypertrophy, endurance, whatever you're working towards. And within that, you can tweak it to whatever your schedule is. So, for instance, if you were a bodybuilder training 4 times a week, you might do 1 week, or say 3 times a week. 1 week, you might do 2 hypertrophy-based days for squat and 1 strength day. The next week, you might do 2 hypertrophy and 1 power. The next day might be 2 hypertrophy and 1 endurance. Likewise, a powerlifter might do 2 strength days and 1 hyper, 2 strength days, 1 power each week, like that. So it's quite difficult to describe. There's so many parameters. I think we put examples. Yeah, that was the product I worked with JMax, was this DUP guide, and we put about 15 to 20 different programs in there, I think. But it's literally unlimited as to how you can program it. So you can change up sets and reps, but the basic premise is that you're always working in a variety of rep ranges and a variety of training modes. So you're never just training for strength in a block. You're always incorporating other things in there as well. So it's very, very flexible. And likewise, I always say to people in the guide, we've got a version for what we call our beat up lifters program. So it's got trap bar deadlifts or block pulls instead of regular deadlifts. It's got front squats instead of back squats to reduce spinal loading. And in theory, you could do it with concentration curls if you wanted. It's that idea of changing up rep ranges within a block rather than dedicating each specific training block to a rep range or one specific goal.
Right. Okay. So you're not just sitting there going, all right, there's 3rd set of 8. Oh, there's the 4th set of 8. Yeah. Okay. That clarifies it a little, for myself and for others as well. Yeah, changing the rep ranges, like they're reps and rest are probably the 2 biggest things you can change. That someone will come in and be like, oh, well, this looks like an easy workout. Change those 2 things, and all of a sudden, it even with moderate weight, you're just like, oh, good God.
Oh, massively. I've had a few powerlifters that have come to me for programming, and they've been so used to only squatting for sort of sets of 3 or 4, and that'll be it. And then I'll say, right, we've got a day where we're squatting for 3 reps, I don't know, 7 sets of 3 or something. We've got a day where you're slightly lighter and squatting 5 sets of 5, and they're like, oh, that's quite hard. And it's like, right, we've got another day of 3 sets of 8 at, 70%. So in theory, incredibly easy. And they'll come back and go, can we just stick with the heavy sets of 3? Sets of 8 is like running a marathon. You're like, yep, it's going to be for a while.
Yeah, I last week I put some volume on my hamstrings doing RDLs that I haven't done in a while, and it took about 4 days for my hamstrings to stop hurting. Yeah. All right. So a couple more questions before we wrap up. So we talked a lot about flexible dieting and if it fits your macros. And I know that you're in contest prep. So right now you're on the typical pro diet of chicken, broccoli, and rice, maybe with a treat here or there. But when you're not getting prepped for a show, what does a typical day of food look like for you?
I typically I don't eat a lot in the mornings, if I'm honest, because I quite like getting up and just getting stuff done. So I'll often go out for a walk. I might train a client, do some writing work. So typically I go a bit kind of hippie-ish, and I'll do a sort of a green smoothie for breakfast. So I'll just stick a load of fruit and veg in a blender with some protein powder and have that on the go. Lunch is, again, always quite growish, I suppose. I have a big egg white omelette with a load of salad, or I have a huge load of meat and veggies, something like that. And I'll typically have cereal or oats as a carb source, and there's some sort of starchy carb in there as well. Afternoon wise, that depends a lot on macros. So if I'm dieting, it'd be something almost purely protein based. If I'm not dieting, I tend to do a lot of work from coffee shops. So I'll go and get something in a coffee shop. So it'll be coffee plus some popcorn, bag of chips or something, maybe a protein bar, but generally it's whatever will fit in with macros. Evening meal, always based around meat or fish with veg. And again, I might chuck some starchy carbs in there depending on macros. I suppose my biggest change is my pre-bed meal, which is I'll often eat right at the end of the day. Dieting is probably going to be oats and like a protein smoothie again, or something like that, or some Greek yogurt mixed with a few bits. Or if I'm bulking and I've got lots of macros, it's always ice cream and as much as I can fit in. So I'd say typically it's probably still, even when I'm bulking, it's like 70, 80% quote unquote clean, just because I quite like eating like that. I'll always get in a good 8 servings of veggies every day, a couple of fruits as well. Fiber is usually around, well, very minimum about 30 grams, depending on carbs, and it can be up at sort of 50, 60 grams. So I tend to handle fiber quite well. So that gives some sort of idea that generally I do eat pretty clean foods for the most part, and just let myself have more leeway when I've got higher macros.
Okay. All right. So one last question here. So I'm traveling next week to Kansas City for the fitness summit, which I'm really excited about. And summer is coming up, which means a lot of people will go on holiday or take vacations. And it's kind of hard to stay on track. It's interesting how we all get in shape for the beach, and then all of a sudden we get to the beach and we just go crazy. So if you can give my listeners real quick a couple rules that you use while traveling, to stay healthy. What are a couple rules that they could take with them when they head out for a vacation?
Yeah, so I would have the idea in my head of when you're out for a meal, give yourself more flexibility and freedom. But when you're just grabbing food on the go, or you're maybe at your hotel with breakfast, use lower calorie options. So there's no reason why, say if you're at an airport or something and you've got the choice of something in a cafe, just go for a chicken salad. Yeah, there's not a special occasion. You don't need to suddenly load up your plate with sandwiches and chips and load of rubbish that you just, airport food's not that great anyway. So why would you bother? If you can have something for 300 calories and a decent amount of protein, have that, because it might come the end of the day where you're meeting up with people and you're at an awesome restaurant and you're going to be eating something fairly high calorie. So try and cut back a bit during the day. I'd always stay as active as possible. So I think if you're traveling somewhere, especially on vacation, you've got more time on your hands. It's a brilliant excuse to walk, go around and see places. So I'm a big fan of my city breaks, and I will also always try and walk as much as I can when I'm seeing a city, just because I think it burns calories. It's a great way to see where you're at. And again, it gives yourself a bit more leeway. And if you want to guesstimate macros, I kind of guesstimate and always go for higher protein stuff, bit lower carb stuff when you can. And then, when you're out, have a bit more fun with it. And I think always try and sample local delicacies as well, because you're only going to be there once, might never go there again. So make those your priority and then cut back elsewhere. But you can have fun with it. Likewise, I said, if you're not deep into contest prep, life comes before dieting, so enjoy yourself.
Right. I totally agree. I learned from hard experience, though. Honeymoon in Scotland, and pretty much ate a lot of haggis and definitely downed one entire container of Fox's Golden Crunches. I don't know why. My wife was like, these are really good. You might like these. I bit into one of them, and next thing I knew, the whole thing was gone. So I love those for some reason. But anyways, all right. So Mike, I've had a great time. If people want to know more about you, where can they find you online?
Probably Facebook or my website is best. So the website is healthylivingheavylifting.com. Facebook page is Healthy Living Heavy Lifting, or if that's a bit too much of a mouthful, just search for me, Mike Samuels, add me as a friend. I love chatting to people, and you'll find everything through there anyway. So just reach out, and would love to chat to people.
Awesome. Well, I have had an amazing time. Mike, thank you so much. Guys, please go check out his site. All the links will be in the article on the website as well, and in the show notes. But again, please go check out his site. He has amazing resources. He's an excellent coach. I've seen some of the results he has gotten. So if you're interested in that as well. Mike, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Rob. Really enjoyed it.